So, if you spent any time scrolling online recently, you've probably stumbled upon this quirky little gadget. Looks kind of like a toy.
Yeah, the one with the little digital dolphin on the screen.
That's the one, the Flipper Zero. It's absolutely exploded, sparked a ton of buzz, but also, honestly, a lot of confusion. Even some controversy,
This
right?
is a controversy.
So today we're doing a deep dive into the Flipper Zero. Our mission really is to unpack what it can actually do, cut through all the hype and the sensational claims.
Separate fact from fiction.
Exactly. And understand what this pocket-friendly multi-tool really means for how we interact with all the technology around us.
And just so you know where we're coming from, we've looked at a whole range of sources to get the full picture.
Right.
Everything from the official Flipper docs, lots of tech reviews, and importantly, those really active, sometimes kind of wild community discussions you see online, like on Reddit.
So you get a balanced view, not just the hype.
Exactly, hype versus hardware.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. What is this thing? Visually, yeah, it looks like something from, I don't know, an old video game. That shell, the dolphin pet.
It's got that retro vibe for sure.
And that toy-like look, it's a bit deceptive, isn't it?
It really is, because while it's super accessible, for seasoned pen testers,
Yeah.
security folks, geeks who love tinkering,
Yeah.
it's also really designed for anyone who's just curious. Curious about all those invisible waves and signals flying around us all the time.
Right. What's actually going on behind the scenes?
And what's fascinating is its core identity. It's a portable, sort of all-in-one multi-tool.
Okay.
And despite being pretty small, it's just packed with specialized hardware. You've got a sub-GHz wireless antenna that covers a lot of common radio frequencies, full support for both RFID and NFC, the tap-and-go stuff.
Okay, yeah.
A one-wire connector for those little I-button keys, sometimes called Dallas keys or touch memory.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those little metal pucks.
Exactly. It's got a built-in infrared transceiver, like your TV remote.
Uh-huh.
And even GPIO connectors. That's general-purpose input-output. Lets you connect physical add-ons, makes it super versatile.
Wow, okay. So a lot packed in. And the price?
Pretty accessible, actually. Starts around, $169, maybe $199, depending on where you get it.
So beyond just being a cool gadget, there's a deeper purpose here, right? It's about education.
Absolutely. At its heart, it's designed to demystify some pretty complex tech.
Like SDR software-defined radio.
Exactly. Things like SDR become way more accessible and, honestly, kind of exciting for hobbyists or even if you're just generally curious.
It sort of pulls back the curtain on how these everyday systems actually work.
Precisely.
Okay, but here's where, the internet drama really kicks in. Because this thing went viral, and not always for the right reasons, did it?
Oh, definitely not. There's just so much misinformation flying around. Those sensational claims, especially on platforms like TikTok.
I have to admit, when I first saw those videos, you know the ones I mean. Cars being unlocked, weird stuff happening.
Absolutely. And it's really crucial we systematically debunk those myths because they paint a completely misleading picture.
Okay, let's do it. Myth number 1, car theft.
Right. The big one. The Flipper Zero cannot steal modern cars. Full stop.
Because of rolling codes.
Exactly. Modern cars use rolling codes. The signal from your key fob changes every single time you use it. It's a security measure.
So you can't just capture one signal and reuse it later.
Nope. Now, could it theoretically open a really old car? Maybe one from 20 years ago or more,
yeah.
potentially,
Okay.
once. But you still couldn't drive it away. The
Okay.
ignition system is separate. So those viral car theft videos, largely fiction.
Okay, that clears that up significantly. What about the credit card stuff? Cloning, skimming.
Another big myth. Okay, here's the deal.
Yeah.
The Flipper can read the card number and the expiration date if you physically hold the card to it.
Physically hold it.
Yes,
Yeah.
physically. But it cannot get the encrypted security code, the CVC or CVV, that 3 or 4-digit number on the back.
The critical part for online purchases.
Exactly. And it can't transmit the info to make purchases anyway. In fact, the company, Flipper Devices, actually removed even the basic card reading function in later official firmware updates.
Oh, really?
Yeah, version 0.81.1 onwards. Now, okay, older firmware or custom firmware might let you read the number and expiry again.
But still not the security code.
Still not the security code, and crucially, you always need the physical card right there to scan it. You can't skim from a distance.
Gotcha. So the risk isn't someone walking past you and grabbing your details wirelessly with this thing?
No, not at all. The risk, if any, is maybe very opportunistic. Someone briefly gets hold of your actual card. It changes the threat scenario, but doesn't really create a new massive risk for credit card fraud beyond existing ones.
Okay, that makes sense. What about those wilder claims? Changing gas prices, hacking ATMs?
Complete fabrication, just fake trash designed to get clicks online. Absolutely not possible with the Flipper Zero.
Right, and traffic lights. I saw videos about that too.
It's also misleading. The Flipper itself can't directly change traffic signals. What can happen is someone uses an external infrared LED device that mimics something called an opticom.
Okay.
That's a specialized emitter emergency vehicles use. The Flipper could then be used to control that external opticom device. But it's not the Flipper doing the signal changing on its own.
I
It
figured.
needs extra hardware.
So it requires more effort and specific gear. It's not just point-and-click chaos.
Exactly. Which brings us to the key takeaway here, I think.
There it is.
The Flipper Zero, fundamentally, it's just a tool. Any perceived evil comes from how a person uses it, not from the device itself.
Like a hammer, right. Build a house or break a window.
Precisely. It's about intent.
Okay, so we've debunked the big myths. Let's pivot now. What can the Flipper Zero actually do? What are the practical, useful, maybe even surprising things?
Yeah, let's get into the actual capabilities, because this is where it gets genuinely interesting for anyone wanting to, understand the tech around them.
Definitely. Let's walk through some specifics. Sub-GHz wireless, you mentioned that earlier, covers 300 to 928 millihertz, about a 50-meter range.
Right. And it's great for testing if simple wireless transmitters are working properly. Like, is your car key fob actually sending a signal? Even if it's a rolling code the Flipper can't use, you can see the transmission.
Okay. Or like older wireless doorbells.
Yeah, older, simpler ones, you might be able to capture and replay the signal to ring it repeatedly. Annoying, maybe, but not high-tech crime.
Huh, right.
It can also interact with simple things like some automatic gates, parking barriers, basic radio locks, remote control switches, maybe some older smart lights that use those frequencies.
Okay, interesting. What about RFID? That's low frequency, 125 kilohertz.
Yep. Low-frequency RFID. The Flipper can read, store, and emulate those kinds of cards and fobs.
So like some hotel key cards.
Yeah.
Or work badges.
Potentially, yeah. If they're using that specific type of RFID and you have the original card to copy, you could clone it for testing, or maybe make a backup for yourself.
And pets. You mentioned pets.
Yeah. It can often read your pet's microchip. It'll usually show the ID number. And if it's a fancier thermochip, it might even read the pet's temperature.
No way. Okay, that's kind of cool.
And sometimes it can even bypass certain locked RFID cards by sort of tricking a reader into revealing the data, which the Flipper then saves.
Wow, okay. Then there's NFC, high frequency, 13.56 millihertz, like contactless payments, but...
Right, same underlying frequency band. Similar to RFID, it can read, write, store, and emulate NFC tags.
What's a common use for that?
A really popular, totally harmless one is cloning Nintendo Amiibos.
Oh, those little figures.
Yeah. You can scan an Amiibo you own to back it up, or use community databases of Amiibo codes to get in-game extras without needing the physical figure every time.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
Then you've got infrared, the IR part.
Like the TV remote thing?
Exactly. It can act as a universal infrared remote for tons of consumer devices. TVs, AC units, stereos, projectors.
How does that work? Does it just know all the codes?
Two ways, mainly. You can learn a new remote. Just point your existing remote at the Flipper and press buttons, and it saves the signals.
Okay.
Or it has built-in libraries of universal remotes. You pick a device type, like TV, and it just rapidly cycles through thousands of known codes until hopefully one works. It's like a brute force approach.
Huh. I remember trying that when I first got mine, just seeing if my ancient TV remote was even transmitting a signal, and it was. Simple, but pretty satisfying.
It's great for testing if old remotes are dead or just need batteries. And this IR capability also has uses in professional security testing, red teaming.
Right, simulating attacks.
Yeah. You could potentially use it to discreetly manipulate things like digital signage in a building or change the thermostat settings just to see how staff react to unexpected changes. It tests awareness and procedures.
Interesting. Okay, what about one wire? The I buttons.
Right, those metal puck keys. The Flipper can read, write, and emulate those too. It's older tech, but you still see it around.
And it's less secure, you said.
Yeah, the basic protocol lacks robust authentication. So copying or storing the key data is relatively straightforward compared to more modern systems.
Gotcha. And then there's bad USB. That sounds ominous.
It can sound ominous, but it's a well-known technique. Basically, when you plug the Flipper into a computer's USB port, you can make the computer think it's just a standard keyboard.
Huh.
a human interface device, or HID.
Okay.
So it can then automatically type commands. You preload a script onto the flipper written in something called rubber ducky scripting language, basically just a text file.
And what can those commands do?
Pretty much anything you can do with a keyboard. Change system settings, try to open back doors, retrieve certain data files, maybe even initiate reverse shells for remote access. Depends on the script and the computer security.
Wow. And you can trigger that remotely.
Yeah, you can often trigger the script execution from your phone connected via Bluetooth or from another computer.
Okay, that does sound powerful.
It is, but again, it typically requires physical access to plug it in first.
Right. Physical access is key for a lot of these things.
It can also act as a signal generator, outputting specific electrical signals through those GPIO pins we mentioned.
Like simulating a car part.
Yeah, the example often given is simulating an anti-lock braking system module for diagnostic purposes on a vehicle.
And the GPIO, the hardware expansion, that sounds like a big deal too.
It is. It makes it much more like a Raspberry Pi or Arduino in terms of potential. You can add custom hardware.
Like that Wi-Fi board.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Wi-Fi development board is a popular add-on. If you flash it with specific non-flipper firmware, something like Marauder is common, it can then perform Wi-Fi testing techniques like deauthentication attacks.
Which knocks devices off Wi-Fi briefly.
Yeah, basically sends disconnect packets.
Yeah.
Useful for testing network resilience. There's also a cool video game module add-on.
Oh, yeah.
Powered by a Raspberry Pi chip, the RP2040. Adds video output, motion sensing with the gyroscope and accelerometer, and lets you run actual C, C++, or on MicroPython applications on the flipper.
So it turns it into a tiny little programmable computer with sensors.
Kinda, yeah. Very versatile.
So bringing this all together, what does this whole picture mean for you, the listener? What's the takeaway from all these capabilities?
I think it's really about understanding the hidden language of the devices all around us. It's an invitation to get curious.
And maybe even test your own stuff, like your home network or those old garage door openers.
Exactly. It empowers you to be a more informed user, to maybe spot potential vulnerabilities in your own setup, and just generally understand how things tick.
Let's talk about the ecosystem around it, too. Firmware is important, right? It's always being updated.
Absolutely crucial. The Flipper team is constantly releasing updates. You can update easily using the Flipper mobile app over Bluetooth or the QFlipper desktop app via USB.
And you recommend sticking to the release channel?
For most people, yes. That's the stable version.
Right.
It's been thoroughly tested. There are other channels like Release Candidate or Development if you want newer features faster, but they might have bugs. Stick to Release for reliability.
But there's also this whole world of custom firmware, right? Does using that void your warranty?
That's a great point, and no, it doesn't. That's one of the cool things. The creators encourage tinkering. You can load third-party firmware easily, and you can always flash it back to the official software if you need to.
And that custom firmware, that's where you unlock even more power.
Often, yes. Custom firmwares might enable features faster or include community-developed applications or sometimes tweak frequency ranges slightly where legally permissible.
There seems to be a bit of a debate around the popular ones, though, like Unleashed versus Momentum.
Yeah, there is. Unleashed firmware has been around longer. It's generally seen as very stable, good for beginners, and has a really large active community behind it for support and apps.
Okay.
Momentum firmware is much newer, just came out in May 2024. It aims to offer really bleeding-edge features, pulling stuff in very quickly.
But maybe less stable?
Potentially less stable, yeah, just because it's newer.
Yeah.
And there's maybe a bit more uncertainty about its long-term direction. Given its development history, it's sort of split off from another project. So trade-offs, stability versus cutting edge.
But regardless of which firmware you run, that community aspect seems huge.
No, vital. Absolutely vital. The community contributes countless apps, tools, plugins, troubleshooting tips. It makes the whole experience much richer and easier, especially if you're learning.
Good point. And accessories. You need a micro SD card, right?
Yes, that's essential. And it's sold separately. Get a decent quality one. And then there's a whole world of 3D printable cases, holders, antenna covers, modules. People get really creative.
So, okay, people often ask this. Is the Flipper Zero the ultimate hacking tool? How does it actually stack up against more specialized gear, like, say, a Proxmark?
That's a really good comparison to make. The Proxmark is a well-known tool specifically for RFID and NFC work.
Right.
And the Flipper Zero is often described as a jack of all trades, master of none.
Okay, so it does a lot of things okay, but maybe not as deeply as a dedicated tool.
Exactly. For RFID NFC, the flipper can do basic reading, saving, emulating, but it generally can't do more advanced stuff like sniffing the communication between a card and a reader or cracking encryption keys or passwords on cards.
Whereas the Proxmark,
The Proxmark is like the specialized screwdriver for RFID NFC. It excels at those advanced tasks. It can clone a wider variety of cards, still not heavily encrypted ones like DS-Fire, usually. And it can even perform attacks against card readers themselves, which the Flipper can't do.
but the Proxmark doesn't do all the other stuff the Flipper does.
Correct. The Proxmark has no sub-GHz radio, no infrared, no bad USB capability, no GPIO pins for hardware expansion, no U2F security key functions. But those are all strengths of the Flipper.
So they're different tools for different jobs, or many complementary tools.
Very complementary, yeah. Different niches.
And the Flipper isn't the only multi-tool like this out there, right? There are others.
Definitely. There are devices like the M1, or more radio-focused ones like the Hack RF1 SDR. Even smartphones running specialized software like Kali Hunter can perform some similar functions. It's a growing ecosystem of accessible exploration tools.
Okay, let's touch on the legal and ethical side. Is this thing legal to own?
In the United States, yes, owning a Flipper Zero is legal.
But there's been pushback. Amazon banned it.
Yeah, Amazon stopped selling it, labeling it a card skimming device, which, as we discussed, is misleading, but that was their reasoning.
And Canada.
The Canadian government initially expressed concerns, linking it to potential card thefts. But those concerns seem to have been somewhat walked back. As the technical limitations, the rolling codes issue became clearer. It doesn't seem to be banned there currently.
But Brazil banned it.
Yes, Brazil has banned the sale and import entirely, citing security concerns. So legality varies globally.
What's the official stance from the creators and the community?
Very clear. The device is intended for educational and testing purposes only. Users must comply with their local laws, and all activities should be conducted ethically. The golden rule is only use it on devices you personally own or where you have explicit, undeniable permission from the owner to test or interact with them.
So no messing with your neighbor's garage door or the traffic lights down the street?
Absolutely not. It's about responsible curiosity and learning, not causing trouble or breaking the law.
Right. So wrapping things up, there you have it, the Flipper Zero. It's clearly far from some kind of magical, universal hacking device that lets you break anything with a button press.
Not at all.
It's really a powerful, portable multi-tool. Offers a fun and, importantly, accessible way to engage with all these invisible digital and radio protocols that, honestly, shape our modern world.
It's really about fostering curiosity and understanding, much more than enabling chaos.
And like you said, it really encourages some critical thinking, doesn't it? About the security of the devices we rely on every single day. Makes you a bit more aware.
Definitely raises awareness about potential vulnerabilities in systems we often take for granted.
So maybe a final thought for you, the listener. Now that you know a device like this exists, one that makes it relatively easy to see and interact with these signals, how does that change the way you think about security in your own life? From your car key fob to your work access card to all the smart home gadgets on your network, something to mull over. That wraps up today's discussion. Thanks for watching and tuning in. If you're curious to dive deeper into this topic, make sure to visit our website. The link is in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell so you never miss an update. See you next time.